It's been over 3 months since US and Israel attacked Iran, and subsequently the war does not seem to end. USA is also hell-bent to continue it. However, what has happened over here is the US House has voted against Donald Trump. Yes, in fact, four of his supporters also have, or from the same ideology, have voted against him. However, that would not necessarily mean that the war would stop, but it still matters a lot, and we will see how is that the case. So let's get started with the news. What is the news about? The news is about the US House of Reps, that is the US's House of Representatives, who has passed a resolution on the US Israel versus Iran war powers. Now, what is the objective of this resolution? The objective is twofold. Either Donald Trump seeks congressional approval for the war, or withdraws the US forces from the war. So either you take the approval from the Congress or withdraw yourself from the war. These two things are there. So probably he is not going to withdraw, but he has to continue. If he has to continue, then congressional approval would be required over there. And this decision was a very nuanced one, as in the votes were quite bifurcated, wherein 215 voted in favor of these clauses. Now over here, four of the Republican Party members supported the Democrats in this particular voting. Now this presently reflects the ongoing tension with respect to the war making authority. So let us now understand as to what is the core issue of the war power conflict. So the core debate is, who controls the war powers in United States of America? Is it the president? You can say yes, because the president is the commander in chief. Is it Congress? You can say yes, because the House and the Senate together form the Congress, and they pass the certain bills and resolution, right? So there is president, who is commander in chief, and Congress, which is required for passing of certain regulations. Now what is the legal basis of this commander in chief and the Congress? The War Powers Resolution of 1973. What is this resolution? What was the objective of this resolution? The objective was to limit the prolonged military action without congressional approval. If you are doing a military operation which is a short term temporary kind of a thing, fair enough, you have gone ahead and done it. But if it is lasting long, if it is dragging out, then the Congress will be involved. That is what that legal basis says. Now what are the war power resolutions? So president, that is the United States president, must notify Congress within 48 hours of deploying the forces. Number two, military action must end within 60 days unless approved by the Congress. So 60 days have already passed. Additional 30 days allowed for safe withdrawal. So 60 days have passed, additional 30 days have passed. Now Congress approval will be required over here. So what is the current situation with respect to US Israel versus Iran conflict? Let us understand that. So Donald Trump basically notified Congress on March 2nd. Okay, he notified Congress on March 2nd, and the statutory deadline of withdrawal was May 1st. Remember, from here to here, March entire, April entire. So this is going to be 60 days. Right now, the Congress did not declare the war. The Congress did not formally authorize the conflict. Still, the military action continues, leading to constitutional friction. 60 days have passed. Congress not declared the war. Congress did not formally authorize the conflict. Still, it continues. So, what is this? Constitutional tussle, friction is created over here. Now, why the House vote matters? See, the war is still going on. So the vote may be symbolic, but politically significant. Why? Because it reflects congressional push to reassert authority. Congress is trying to push. Congress means the House and the House of Representatives, and the Senate is trying to push their own authority. It highlights the internal Republican dissent. Why? Because 211 were Democrats and 212 were Republicans. Sorry, this has to be 212. 212 were Republicans. So voting should have been something like this. But 215 people actually voted against Donald Trump and 208 in favor of Donald Trump. That means 4 people from here voted in sync with the Democrats. Now, this is very interesting. In India, that would not happen. If this happens in India, there would be that would be known as a defection. Why? Because there is a whip in the parliament. Whip means whatever the whip is given, whatever way you are asked to vote, you have to vote in that manner also. Whatever your personal opinion might be, you still have to vote as your political party votes. That unless and until majority of the members are dissenting. Okay, but here you have your individual thing also maintained over here, and it can be clearly seen, right? However, this voting, this decision is non-binding unless the Senate agrees to that. So let's look at the Senate and the constitutional uncertainty. See, Senate is controlled by the Republicans. That is why you have Donald Trump basically as the president over here, who was a Republican member, right? So the Senate, which is controlled by the Republican, is of course unlikely to pass this particular thing. Previous attempts have failed. 7 earlier failed attempts have been reported, as a result of which not just legal ambiguity, legal uncertainty, and a legal red tapeism can also be said to be existing over here. Supreme Court in 1983, the USA Supreme Court in 1983 has limited the legislative veto power. Right? What is veto power? Veto power means having the sole authority to ensure that a particular rule is not enforceable. That is veto. Then president retains broad commander-in-chief powers, will to an extent be retained, because at the end of the day, that person is the president of the United States of America. Okay? Let's move ahead now. Let us see what is the significance of this. So even though this looks quite symbolic, however, the vote is quite important because it signals the rising congressional resistance. You can clearly see the resistance to the war that is ongoing. So at least some of the logical brain, you can say, is prevailing over there and realizing that this simply cannot go on forever. They were not saying much in the beginning, but at least after 3 months, more than 3 months, at least some are raising issues over here. Next, internal divisions can be seen within the Republican Party. Now, that is not a good sign for the political party or for the government in power, that within your own political party there are dissents or there are differences or there are conflict, because then there is a chance of you losing power or in future not being able to gain the power, and the mood of the country, of the citizens and of the parliamentarians also shifting. So that is a big concern for the particular government which is present in the United States of America right now. Now, if the sentiment spreads, what will happen? The sentiments against this war spreads, it will put pressure on the Senate and the White House, because ultimately it's the people who have chosen the government, right? And part of them are saying that the war, continuing of war, is not good, and the people also then put more pressure. Then the Senate would be under pressure. See, as far as power is concerned, they can still ensure that it does not get implemented, but moral obligation, pressure from the citizens, right, the will of the people, the democratic nature of the country, the protests, etc., will put a huge pressure. And then what will happen? Either they will give in to it. If they don't give in to it, they will lose a lot of ground, and a lot of trust of people will be lost, because the people will realize that this is a government which actually does not listen to the will of the people, right? The core issue which remains unresolved is what? The balance between the national security and the constitutional war powers. Okay? So here national security means all this is being done saying that, okay, we thought that Iran would be a danger to the United States of America in future, so that's a matter of national security. Using this rhetoric, this argument, how things are proceeding. But at the same time, is that holding any importance? Did any intelligence agency mention Iran as an immediate threat or not? All those things are questionable. In fact, it has come out that it was not the case. So that is on one side, and on the second side is the constitutional war powers, which is divided between the United States of America's president as well as the Congress which is present in the United States of America. So it is clear that this may not necessarily be implemented unless this it will not be implemented because the power in the Senate is still of the Republicans, but the pressure of the people will mount. So it will remain interesting to be seen that will the Senate implement it, or will the Senate choose to lose the trust of the people. Thank you.